The old podium, one of many.
Your favorite place? Any podium?
Nah, I don't need the podium.
All right, Coach, we got a 24-win team from last year coming in here
Yeah.
Monday to open things up.
Yeah, college basketball is getting kicked off. You can feel the butterflies a little bit now that it's official, and your preparation and everything that you've done up until this point, hope puts you in a position to be ready. And Fairfield got a lot of respect for their program. They had a fantastic year last year. We played them early. They had a lot of injuries and whatnot at that time. They really, coach did a phenomenal job of putting it together, and they competed all the way down the line for a conference championship in March. And to open with them will be a challenge. It really will be. Their team's changed. Our team has changed like most. But you need a hard playing team, athletic, really shoot the ball in transition. The glass, crashing the glass. They have a unique style in terms of the pace that they play at. And they have some key returners and some new guys that we're really obviously concerned about. So as we get ready to get started, we're going to play a really good team on night one. We're going to need to be clearly at our best. And but it's time to play. It really is. It's time.
Archie, before talking about the game Monday, just this morning and being part of that Coaches versus Cancer breakfast.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience. Every year that we have the opportunity to put the coaches together and the fan bases and the sponsors for the Coaches versus Cancer tip-off breakfast, and to bring awareness, to shed light on stories. I think every time that you show up there and you leave, you kind of take a deep breath and say everything's going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's a really humbling morning. It always is, and this morning was no different. Coach's story resonated. It hits home, with you, your family, your kids, and then there's a lot of people that are affected by it. Just via networking, family, your family, friends. You name it. It's just every time you turn the corner, you run into cancer, unfortunately. Now, Coaches versus Cancer in basketball, I stated this in the morning, to be, a tag team partner, so to speak, in raising, money, to be able to generate awareness and to contribute to, the cure is it's a great thing to be a part of.
In terms of your team, your identity so far, figuring that out. Where do you feel like you're at? What kind of team do you feel like you're going to be putting on the floor here to start?
Yeah, I think number one, from an identity standpoint, there is an attack mentality on offense for us, and I think that we have personnel that really fits the pace and the speed that we want to play at. I also think that we have some depth and some skill that my hope is there's not a ton of drop off when we substitute, and we can keep the pedal down. From a defensive standpoint, a committed group that understands that you win big in college basketball by defending. And regardless of how fun and fast and the pace, it starts and stops with your ability level to have a disposition on defense that you win games, a number of different ways, and we can win playing hard-nosed man-to-man defense, but committed and connected. And, for us, our group has been at it longer, and we've been together more than I have in my previous two opportunities here. We have a blend of returners, and we also have a blend of newcomers. And I feel that the time spent and the combination of those two things, optimistically, it fits. We have a better gel, we have a better chemistry, we have a higher quality of team in terms of chemistry, purpose, and I do think that, putting it all together here has been fun. It's been a good group to coach, and leading into the season, we have a lot more answers than we have questions, I think, in terms of what we actually are going to have to do.
I wanted to ask you about your roster management. In the past, 13 scholarship athletes, the coaches wanted to have a lot of depth and talent, and now with the transfer portal, you don't get playing time. It might develop issues. You've got a unique approach this year to the roster. talk about that a little bit?
It's a great, question. I think everybody's going to have a different mindset in building a program. Everyone's going to have different resources in how you can build a program and what your approach is. Me personally, as a coach, you have to be very comfortable with how many guys you realistically play. What are you comfortable with as a coach playing? And if the number's 13, great. My number's not 13. It's not. And the most successful teams that I've had, we've had some deep teams that have been, 9, 10, 11, but there's some serious sacrifice that goes on with 9, 10, and 11. They have to be in the right seat on the bus, so to speak, to accept that. In today's day and age, especially as you're moving around and you're signing up to go to places as transfers or whatever, you better have that role definition down before they ever show up, because if it's not intact and what you sign up for isn't what you get, you deal with a mess. You deal with a team that, quite frankly, doesn't get along or doesn't buy in, and at the end of the day, it's not about winning. It's not about the right things. And I know where we're comfortable, and I think at the end of the day, for this group, we have the right number in terms of competitiveness, quality, and also the number that's actually going to play in the game, can be impactful on a nightly basis, that everybody here has a role. And to me, that helps camaraderie. It helps opportunity. And it puts pressure that every day that you show up in practice, you can earn more. But for us with this group, we really kind of zeroed in on, the number, for us, ironically, at the end of the day, it was probably on game day, what are we comfortable playing? And if it's 10, great. If it's 9, great. If it's 8, let's invest in those 8, 9, and 10 and make sure that we have everybody understanding where they're at before we get started.
So you're gonna run with, you have 10 active scholarship players.
On game day.
So is there a trade-off there that you're running a little risk?
Absolutely.
With injury?
Absolutely. Foul trouble, injury, sickness, you name it, you're going to deal with it all over the next 6 months or 5 months, whatever it is. And you have to feel that your entire approach to how you run the program can cover you when you're down numbers. And that starts and stops with your practice environment. Sometimes it gets really difficult to get better in practice when you're down a lot of numbers. And for us to have always right redshirting, to have Damon King redshirting, to have Mook redshirting, to have some walk-ons in there, to have more bodies that are quality players on a daily basis that are striving to get better and practicing every day, that you can cover yourself a little bit more in that regard with the numbers. But on game day, it will be some risk and some reward, but I feel like we're versatile enough where we can get away with the roster that we have. Obviously, we don't want to deal with mass casualties, so to speak, but there's some risk there.
If you're a redshirt, at some point during the season, if they agreed and you needed it, would they be able to come back on the roster?
I think you can pull a red shirt anytime you want. We don't anticipate that happening.
And so, if you tend to where, I'm not quite sure, maybe at center, if you had a catastrophic injury at center.
Yeah, I think if you look at our team, we're probably a little bit thin in terms of the mass numbers or the depth that we can throw at you, inside. I'm not sure that plays as big of a role nowadays with the amount of small teams that are out there, and whether it's 5-out or small ball teams that you play against. I don't necessarily know if you're dealing with the anchors on the blocks all the time. So being able to play a group of 4 guards with one guy, we've prepared for that. We probably need to continue to develop that as the season goes. It could become more 60-40 small, maybe 70-30 at times, where we have to place 4 guards. But I do think that we prepared for that on the front end to say, you go to the Bahamas and you lose 2 guys down there to ankle injuries. That stuff kind of opens your eyes up to where you're susceptible, and I think that we've kind of utilized our off season to prepare us for some casualties.
We have a public 40-minute sample of what you guys might look like
Yeah.
against Yukon, albeit without Sebastian, certainly.
Yeah.
So Monday night, how different, how similar might the team you put on the floor look compared to that 40-minute sample?
Yeah, good question. It feels like it was a year ago, as crazy as it sounds. I know it was a few weeks ago. It was October 15th. To play 40 minutes in that environment, the intensity level that was required to play against Yukon, I felt we were up to the challenge in terms of wanting it, preparing for it. Our guys were ready to go. when you play against the quality and caliber of that opponent in that venue, if you have some lulls throughout the course of a game, you're going to get bit. And we got bit in the second half, obviously. We look completely different without Sebastian. He plays the most vital role on this team. I don't think there would be a player on our team that would state that he's not the most important player on our team, most valuable guy. He has such a control in where he's at in his career with how to play the position and what we're asking him to do. It's refreshing on a daily basis as a coach to have that. And he makes everybody around him better, which is what you want from your point guard. So it does change. It also changes the role distribution. But it gave some guys that night more playing time, more experience, which was good. But it will look different in terms of that. And I also think, you know, what we've tried to accomplish where we're at with our roster, you know, and, you know, the starting group versus who's coming in, you know, can we be a little bit different in terms of strategic, who's on the floor at the same time? You know, I think you can't maybe just fire guys in and out like you want. I think that, you know, who we start in a game strategically may not be the best five, but it's that group maybe that plays best together. And when you substitute, maybe you're not substituting new players, maybe you're substituting experience that's played together, so you don't have a significant dip when you sub. You actually maybe theoretically have more production coming in off the bench at times. So we can look a lot different on Monday. I anticipate, obviously, over the next 3 days in practice, seeing how things pan out. But I do believe that some of the things that you saw against Yukon and some of the concepts and some of the guys out there, obviously, they all played. You're going to get a flavor for as we continue to evolve. But I do think we are drastically different with Sebastian. And we're also, I think, more evolved, I guess, in terms of like what we're trying to do with the minutes.
So maybe with that in mind, the last couple of weeks, how much do you teach and coach off that film? And how much do you teach and coach compared to maybe what you and the staff have as a vision for what this team could be and how it could play?
Yeah, I think the Yukon game was where we at on October 15th, and when you're playing against the best, and you're going to have to, your toughest games on your schedule, what are you going to have to do better? I think all of that has been pointed to light and been emphasized as we've grown over the last 2 weeks. But also in those next 2 weeks was combinations of players that are going to play together the most, more in practice now, starting to move in that direction, slimming some guys from less thinking, maybe don't want to learn two positions anymore, it's not going to work, he's going to be better. We've kind of streamlined, I would say, to our approach to the players in the lineups. Where going into Yukon, it had nothing to do with role distribution lineups. I think we've gotten through that. This is where we got to get better at. Clearly, they're glaring holes, and now to do that, we have to earn these next 2 weeks leading into our opener about the guys being more bent on, they're asking me to do this more of. I need to be able to accept this role a little bit cleaner. The groupings that are playing together now in practice, not as sporadic anymore with random teams, maybe more 1 and 2. So as we've prepared for Monday, we did have a second scrimmage opportunity against St. Anselm, which we were able to sneak in on Tuesday night, and we were much more in that mode of this is who we want to see play together. This is what we want to see coming in the game later in the half. This is the small lineup that we have to play when we do have to go into that small lineup. So we were much more strategic in the 2 weeks in terms of building for game one. I do think that the Yukon game shows the glaring holes of where you're going to have to get to if you want to play competitive against the best teams on your schedule.
Coach, you talked about having an older, more mature team, and that you have perhaps one of the oldest teams you've had in a while. But from the Yukon game, it looked like there was a freshman who's going to get some significant playing time.
I just talked to him about that. We have one true freshman that is, on game day, that's ready to go, in terms of what we did. And Tai Toney is coming from the winningest program in Baltimore over the last 20 years, 15 years, 20 years. Baltimore in the state of Maryland, Pat Clatchy's Mount St. Joe's program is the standard in that area in terms of winning. And Tai has played in a winning environment. He's played in a lot of high pressure and big games. And he comes from a place that, The strong survive, so to speak. And when we recruited him, obviously you look down the line and you're so excited about what a guy like him can become. But you also, like I talked to him a little bit earlier, we have to have the knowns right now, and tryout mode's over. And as a coach, what are we trusting you to do where you can continue to make a big impact on our team, and stressing us a few areas for him to kind of like really zero in on. Naturally, he is a playmaker. He can pass it, he can handle it, he's a slasher. He's very physical for a freshman in terms of his natural ability. The thing that has stood out for us early is he's not afraid when the lights are on to guard the other team's best guy. He's not, as a young guy, as lost maybe as some other freshmen are when they come to college defensively, which his size makes me more excited, because where we're vulnerable at times with our skill and some of our guard positions, we're also vulnerable in the defensive glass, the offensive glass, the size that you need in college to be able to play against bigger teams. And he gives us that. So we have to keep developing him. He's got to keep carving out his niche. He's earned the right, like I told him today, and he's been given nothing. He really has. He's been given nothing since the first day he's got on campus. He was given nothing when we went to the Bahamas. He's been given no tree fruit. What he showed on October 15th when we played Yukon is exactly what we've seen for the 6 months that we've known him on our campus. Where he goes from here is that test of young maturity. Can he continue to grind away at becoming a great player and a team guy that knows that like his role is getting whittled down to being very specific on what we're asking him to do. And if he can do it, I do think that he can really help us.
Coach, you got a 7-foot center, and I heard he was a shot blocker, rim protector.
Maybe.
At Yukon, he would be like the whole package.
Javonte's he's another guy. He's a little older in his time. You're catching him at the best time of his career, and he's been through some experiences. He's very hungry. But the thing I give him credit for is he's really committed to understanding that we are playing a very swift pace. And the concern for him, how many minutes can he handle? He hasn't played a ton of minutes, leading into this. His per minute played averages are off the charts, but could he handle 25 minutes? Could he handle 20 minutes? Can he get away with playing that way? He committed to himself when he got here, as well as any player that we've been around, individually and in our strength and conditioning area, as well as anybody. And we can practice for 2.5 hours here, and I tell you what, he doesn't ask for a break. That's a credit to him and how he's prepared. And it's put him in a position to be on the floor longer, and the longer that he's on the floor, he's going to produce. He's giving us a presence on both ends of the floor that we have to really develop and keep him at home base, so to speak, in terms of what he does well. And through the Bahamas, he got better. Through our fall preseason, he won 3 gold jerseys in a row to start practice. He's earned, obviously the opportunity, in my opinion, to be a guy that everyone on the team has a lot of respect for. And he's a great guy. He's a great teammate. So
I just met him for the first time, and just for a few minutes talking.
Fantastic.
Seems to have, in a good way, an attack edge about him.
He's a great kid, and he really is a great teammate, and he's been a pleasure to have here. I mean, he really has.
He seemed like a real good person, but when he was talking about basketball, I just had the sense that he has this, he can't wait, he wants to attack.
Well, I think he's excited. I think in his mind, if you look at him, a lot like David Green, his year a year ago was botched, or it was chopped up. So when he did get eligible to play, he had to work through that January and February to become 15, 16, 18 games, whatever he is. But in those minutes that he played, he helped Western Michigan a ton. And with a full year under his belt, can even be better. And I think he's really just excited to be ready to play fair shake. I get the whole, kit and caboodle here at the beginning. I worked hard. And he's a difference maker for us. He's got to keep working at it, but with who he has been and who he is, he's going to help this team.
Coach, you spoke a lot
Do one more
about,
question?
Yeah, so you spoke a lot about Javonte Brown coming in, this whole transfer class you brought in experience. How does Jamarcus Lawrence and his experience playing in the Big Ten, how important is that for you guys, because of his abilities to play on ball and off ball? What do you expect from him this season?
Jamarcus is another guy that I can't rave enough about who he is as a person. He's an unbelievable kid. He's got a great work ethic. He's been a joy to coach, and since day one he stepped on campus, he's embraced whatever we've said, and he's really worked at it. He also is really self-driven. He'll be in here on an off day 3 times. You know, he works at his craft. He wants to be good. And what he wants is an opportunity to be a dominant personality on a team, and I think he's earned that right. Now, the great thing about it is he's played a lot of point guard for us. And now that Sebastian is sort of back, he's also looked upon as being a heck of a 1-2 punch with those two, and that's what we're envisioning, those guys being able to play with each other a lot more than anticipated maybe. And also I think at the end of the day, he does have a lot of experience in college basketball, playing in big environments, big events, great players on the other team. He's not afraid. And he did well against Yukon in handling the ball the entire game with no substitute. I don't anticipate him having to do that the whole year, which is good. And I think his greatest gift, as much as it is anything, is the weapon that he is behind the three-point line. He is a big-time shooter, and the more that we can get him shots, looks, the better it is for our team. And that's where I think Sebastian coming in a little bit with him is a really good chemistry with those two together in terms of both being able to play make and both being able to feed off each other a little bit there. But Jamarcus is obviously really important to what we're doing, and he's come in with the right way, a lot like Javonte, a lot like all of our newcomers, Drisa, Q as well. I'm not sure if I'm missing another transfer in there as well, but you know, Sebastian, I don't even consider him a transfer. It's crazy. I look at him, I'm like, wasn't even gone. But those 5 guys have all specifically come in here and really handled their business.
All right, Coach, we'll let you get going.
All right, first of many here.